All right, so good afternoon. So just to start on a little bit of background on myself, so Xavier Rezgui, I'm the CEO of PocketWhale. So PocketWhale, we do three things. We do consulting for monetization and retention, especially on soft launch. We do also SEO for app stores, and we do marketing, especially PR and influencer marketing. And so today we're going to talk about soft launch, and I just wanted also to say why we name our company PocketWhale. So Pocket, obviously, it's for the mobile device, and Whale is because it's all about paying users. And paying users in free-to-play, this is really what is core. And usually, what I notice from people coming from paid games, they don't understand the importance of soft launch. Why? Because in free-to-play, actually, when you launch a game, it's really when trouble are starting. So you want to prepare as soon as possible and as much as possible for the soft launch. And this is what we're going to tackle during the presentation. So you know that we are in the prototype industry. The gaming is like a movie industry, and each game is different from one another. And every time, actually, you launch a game, you never know if it's going to fly. And most of the time, if you skip the soft launch, what happens is, like, in most cases, you crash. And this is here, soft launch. It's all about mitigating those risks. And here, this is some risk, some of why game could crash. So, for example, retention is low, game is unstable, game requires very high-end devices to work. So you have a lot of reasons why a game could crash. So in soft launch, we are focusing on three main areas. The first one is retention. This is by far the most important things you want to master in the first place. With no retention, you don't need to care about monetization or even marketing. So let's start with retention. So by the way, as we are not so many, I would invite you to ask questions during the presentation. If you want, we can make it more interactive. Huh? So first, for retention, you want to get qualitative data. So you want to test as early as possible. You can start small. You don't need large groups to do first. Well, of course, you will ask your friends and family to test your games. Then you can do phone interviews. You can do focus groups. We do focus group all the time, and you don't need like large groups. With 5-10 people is enough to get first feedback. And what kind of feedbacks do you want to get? You want to have qualitative feedbacks. You want to know, of course, if the game is fun to play. It seems obvious, but it's something that you don't want to realize that too late, that not so many people like it. You want to understand also the profile of the users who likes your game. Is it more female? Is it more male? Is it older people? So this is the kind of information you want to get as much as possible. And of course, is there any major issue in your UX? Is like your tutorial is not well done? Is there something blocking the users in the middle of the experience? So for real boxing, we recommended to actually reach, they had a lot of players from Real Boxing 1. They had more than 20 million downloads, so it was easy to reach out to RB1 players. And so here, we recommend to do phone interviews. And it was very good, to get like initial feedbacks on RB2. What do they expect of the second top? Then the second part is to get quantitative data. And here, you want to do a soft launch. First, you want to select a country. The country, is very important actually, because you want to find a country where it makes sense. The game that people like the game genre. You're not going, for example, to select Philippines because it's cheap to do user acquisition there for games which is about Belot or card games which is not played in Philippines. It doesn't make any sense. And you also want decent buying power. Because otherwise, I mean, all your tests about monetization afterward will not make so much sense. Also in terms of platform, I mean, if you can select, you choose to run the test on both platforms, that's very good. I mean, usually if you have to pick up one, go for Android, because on Android you can iterate fast. And you want to have a sample size of minimum would be 1,000 users. This is very small. But at least 1,000 users will get you some data on the D0 retention and so on. You want also to get information on the number of sessions. You want to know the session length. And one part which is usually quite often underestimated, stability. Stability for developers is something that they don't like to look into it so much, especially on Android, but it's key. I mean, if you don't manage stability well, it will actually make all your KPIs wrong, because you will think that people are leaving because the tutorial is not that good or this feature is not that good, but actually it's just because the game is unstable, it's crashing all the time. So here I would advise to use like special tools for it. Any questions? So far so good? All right. So in the real Blockchain 2, we actually make the recommendation, of course, on the analytics. Selecting tools for analytics is critical. Here you have plenty of analytics out there, but it's a very committed choice. Usually you are going to take time to implement. It takes a couple of weeks at least. And then there is a cost of change. So usually you commit for the entire life of the game. So you better make sure of choosing the right analytics. Same for tools tracking stability and attribution. Here we recommend to select Canada. Canada just because it was a good country, a good proxy for US. Of course we were focusing for a boxing game. The main country was US. And we also recommended everything regarding the size sample, channels to use, a budget. And we also made some recommendation on the user experience. Here we found out like some decline in KPIs, in retention KPIs pretty early, so it was like still time to fix them before the launch. Any question? So good? All right. So, second part, monetization. So the whales. So first you want to test in-app monetization. Select one country. So usually you will do it in the same country as mentioned. Here you are going to focus more on iOS because this is where you get the best monetization. And then in terms of sample size, you should go for at least 5,000 users. Just because the number of paying users is so low, usually around 2%. So if you want to have like at least some valid data, you need to go at least for this kind of size in terms of sample. And what do you want to look at? You want to know your percentage of paying payers. You want to know how long does it take to get the first purchase. Of course, ARPU, ARPDAU. And the LTV, we call it projected here. This is depending on your analytic tool, but you would like to get LTV very early on. And you cannot calculate it very easily at the beginning, so you want to have like tools that allow to do some projection. And here, actually, if you want to do, you can do advanced monetization for in-app, and here it's about, we call it profiling. You become a profiler to understand what your user, what is the psychology of your users. That's very important because you need to understand, first of all, if what are the main traits. Are they impatient? Are they competitive? Are they gamblers? Are they collectors? There are a lot of profiles out there. But you need to understand that to then define the right features. So the right feature for monetization which fits with your whales. Here, again, you only focus on paying users. So that's the most, you want to understand their psychology, to only build features for them. In here, the way to do it is to test it with, you can test those features with different cohorts in parallel. And the trick is also to find the right balance, depending on the profiles, because some features will annoy some other users. So you want to find, this is, like, I would say, more art than anything else, but you need to do this kind of approach if you want to improve your monetization over the long run. Any question on that? Yeah? Yes, yes. And so, for instance, so we analyze some well, major titles, top-grossing titles, like Machine Zone. If you look at a Game of War, to understand the psychology of the user, it's something we did actually through focus group. Because in focus group, we had interviews with paying users, guys spending $400 a month on that game, and here it was like and trying to understand what was the psychology, why they were spending that much, and to understand the characters and so on. This is how we proceeded. So what you try to do with a new game is to find like the best proxy in the market and try to have interviews with those paying users. Yes, yes. So, and it's not that hard actually to do it. I thought it would be harder to find paying users. Paying users are very happy to talk about their habits. When you spend a couple of $1,000s on a game, actually you're happy to talk about it. They're very happy because in their family, usually they are not, it's not really the place where they can explain why they spent a couple of $1,000 on machines on Game of War. So for real boxing, we help to categorize the existing monetization features. There are a lot of features regarding monetization, and here the idea was to try to find fits. For example, if you take the VIP, would be more for the what we call braggers profile, and we want to see the fit and test those features. So the way you test it, usually you will just remove these features and see, do A/B test and find out how it works. It takes time. This requires a lot of iteration, but I mean the outcome is to really focus on the paying users for that game. Then you have also advertising monetization, and here it's also important to test it during soft launch. So you want to select format which fits best the user experience. You want to define the ad format, so usually, I mean, what we see, what is pretty common is to use videos, interstitial, even native, which is more rare. And in the game, you want to leverage natural breaks. So at the end of, if it's a casual game, at the end of a party, so to find, you want to exploit this kind of easy spots. And here you need to select the right SDKs as well. Usually depend on where your audience is coming from. So for monetization, you have a lot of players in the market. It's better to combine a lot of them, and you have mediation tools for that as well. So to make sure you cover everything from Brazil to UK or Australia, even Asia. And if you want to go one step ahead of it, in terms of you want to sort of test retention with and without ads. Ads could work against your retention. So it's something you would like to know how many users you're going to lose if you use ads. If you want to go even to do even like deeper tests, you want also to test to use like LTV, predictive LTV. You have predictive LTV tools that allow to show ads or not to show ads to users depending on if they're going to spend or not in the game, and that's quite critical actually. Any question on that? Okay. So then, last part is about marketing. Of course, what the soft launch helps is also to prepare for the store featuring. So you will, in the presentations that you do to Apple and Google, usually you will include like your KPIs from the soft launch. And this is the best, of course, acquisition channel ever. In terms of App Store SEO, what is also important during soft launch is to find out what are the relevant keywords. Optimize all your metadata accordingly. And search is really the best quality source of traffic, usually because people, when they search for something and they download it, you will have like higher retention. And that will guarantee as well like long-term traffic. Landing page optimization, that part is also something which is ongoing. You started on the soft launch, and usually you keep going afterward. So you want to A/B test icon, screenshot, video. You have to notice that as well. The two platforms are different. iOS and Android are not. You cannot use. You don't use the same assets from on Android and on iOS. And what's the impact? The impact is you decrease your cost of acquisition significantly, and also you maximize your organic traffic. If anyone lands on your page, you want to convert it. Here with RB2, we managed to get to a very high level in terms of conversion. It is the highest I've ever seen. In terms of testing also marketing assets during and all the channels during the soft launch, so you will test, of course, the usual suspects, Facebook, Google AdWords, and also various video network, Chartboost, and so on. And here you want also to test all the different assets, and it's the best way to optimize your ROI. So you have to ROI target, and if you really want to make your ad spends valuable, you need to do that in advance. So here for RB2, this part was like was so good in terms of conversion rate that we managed to get something like 5 times lower. The CPI is 5 times lower than the comparable games in Tier 1 Geo. So this is quite unusual that they can get with RB2 ROI positive campaigns, which are in the first week, they can recoup the investment, which is pretty unusual in mobile games. So usually it will take longer, and you're unsure about the outcome. Any question on that? All right. Well, I think that's all. So, any other comments or question regarding soft launch? Yeah. Yeah, calling players. It's just focus group is better because you can interact in a deeper way. But usually, if you do, you do it remotely. You will use phone interviews, and usually we give a reward for it. We offer like an Amazon coupon or something to the players, and it works pretty well as well.
How long did the soft launch last?
The whole process, if you want to do it like as deep as that, takes 6 months. So that's very long, so you come very early in the development process. Here it was, in the case of RB2, it was pretty large, actually people involved, but it's like every department, from user acquisition to also developers. For when we were talking about analytics, features, this was also interacting with developers. So it's not like you don't have someone dedicated to it, but it's kind of a process with an existing team. So you don't need like a dedicated resource for the soft launch. It's a process. But it takes time, for sure. You don't do that at the last minute, and it happens quite often that we got in contact with developers at the last minute for self-launch, and it's far too late. I mean, you cannot do much about it. Like in terms of outcome, you can just optimize a few things, but you cannot really mitigate all the risk. And unfortunately, when it comes to the launch, then it's a bit too late. You lose the window in mobile is pretty short. So if you miss it at launch, it's very hard to recover afterward. So usually I would advocate to postpone. But sometimes here, for example, we had a lot of pressure from MGM because of the launch, because of the Creed launch. So in the US, the game was to be ready for the launch of the movie. So it was pretty tough in terms of deadlines. So we were not able to do everything, but we do like the essential part. All good? All right. Thanks.